Okay, so we're back again, and we're going to look at a person, and we're going to see what happens in this situation when they do have this issue. So the first thing we're going to do is have them lift their left leg up to their chest. So go ahead and do that, and pull that all the way to your chest, all the way, all the way, all the way. So when they don't quite get it there, which she's not, I will assist them, and I will pull the leg up to the chest. And when I do that, what you'll see is the whole leg rise up. And I'll do the same thing on the opposite side, bring that leg up. Again, most of the time I assist this process, and what you'll see is the leg rise. So that tells me she's got part one of this problem, which is that she's got tension in the hip flexors. So I'm going to assess which one of those it is, fix that problem, and I'll give her stretching for home, etc. That will help facilitate that process so that we minimize that. Now that's significantly better because this is Christine, who I've worked on before, who when we first saw her, she had probably about 45-degree elevation in the leg. She had a lot of hip pain, and that's all resolved. So we're in good shape. We're still getting there because, like anything else, when you sit a lot during a day, it's likely to recur. So we need to do, constant, sort of repetition to get this back. So the second part I'm going to check is for her abdominal stability or strength. So I'm going to bend her knees, and I'm going to ask her to sit up about 45 degrees, and then hold that position. And what you'll notice is that typically when people have some weakness, the first thing they do is they flex their neck. So you see that happening? So that's the first thing we see. The second thing we look for is shuddering in the upper torso. Now, if I'm not happy, and she was only up about 10, 15 seconds and felt the need to go down, so that tells me we've got part two. We've got inhibition of that. If I didn't see that, I might manually press against her to try to push her back, to try to see if I could rotate her trunk to show whether or not she was stable or unstable. So now I'm going to have her go on her stomach, and this is part two. We've got the two parts so far. We've got tension in the hip flexor, we've got inhibition in the abdominal wall, and there's other mechanisms to test for that too. But those are simple ones that we can do in office. Now, the next phase of this is I'm just going to have her lift her leg off the table. So go ahead and lift that up. And you'll notice that her pelvis rose on this side. You may not see that, but I can easily put my fingers, I can't now, and as soon as she does, you see it moves away from my hand. So now she's got part two. She's got inhibition of this muscle. Now if I want to test that again, I can just put my finger on it, have her lift the leg, and I will feel that activate, but not sufficiently enough to really do what I wanted to do. There's another test for that. We can simply bend her knee, lift the leg in the air, and I ask her to hold it there. You'll notice she's lifting the pelvis, so she's arching her back. Hold that against me, and I test, and the muscle goes weak. So that tells me she's got part three, the inhibition in the glute. We test that both sides, have her do the same thing on the other side, and you see the elevation. It's not quite as much on that side, so there's a little bit more on this side. I can again test that muscle and lift the leg and hold it there and push against me, and she can't really do that, so that's part three. And then the last piece was the flexibility in the low back, and I feel for tension in the muscles, and her muscles definitely feel tight. They may be tender to the person. Is that tender at all?
A little bit,
okay,
yes.
so there's a little bit of soreness there with that. And then again, we could sit her up, have her sit on the edge of the table, and then ask her to just try to put your chest to your knees. So go ahead and do that. Just try to put your chest to your knees. And she doesn't do too badly. She's coming almost fully. Obviously, she's not going to touch the floor, but anyway, if she did, that would be great. But anyway, that's the last part. So I have felt the muscles. I realized they're tight. I have checked the glutes, and they are weak. They're inhibited. The abdominal wall's inhibited, and the hip flexors were tight. So this is a classical example of lower cross syndrome, which that usually has to do with pelvic issues. Pelvic subluxation, meaning problems in the motion of the pelvic joints, problems in the low back, and problems in the what we call the thoracolumbar junction, where your mid back meets your lower back. So I'm going to assess all that. I'm also obviously going to assess her neck, because that's inputting information throughout the body about where you are in space, etc., etc. And all those things could be affecting those muscles, giving them the wrong signals, telling them to get tight or not tight. And that's where the postural symmetry and all the other stuff comes in. We find this very commonly in jumping athletes. We find it very commonly in people, hyperpronators, runners, etc. So it's a very big problem that obviously will limit hip mobility. It will inhibit the firing mechanism in the butt muscles, which are very important for propulsion or moving you forward in any running or any kind of sports activity, and for that matter, in any life activity. So what we might also see with this is her impaired squat. So I'm going to stand her up, and I'm going to have Christine put her arms up overhead, and we're just going to ask her to squat down as far as she can go. And I'm going to grab that camera now so that you can see that. Go ahead, Christine. Let's have you do that again. And you see she comes to about a 90-degree plane. So we're going to have her do it one more time. And she's about 90, maybe a little bit further. So she doesn't have much impairment in that motion, which is great. A lot of people will, but that would be another test for that. If it was limited, we might test for her stability, but we're not going to do that because she actually did pretty good with that. So that ends our little video on lower cross syndrome. Hope you enjoyed that one.